Good morning. I am Anika. I'm a librarian at Pike Branch of Indianapolis Public Library. Today is Sunday, February 21st. It is approximately 27 degrees outside. In addition to being a librarian, I'm also a certified master gardener, and one question I get a lot is, what can I do during the winter? So today I'm going to be doing a short demonstration, emphasis on short, because we are all overloaded with Zooms and videos and all that kind of thing, on what's known as winter sowing. Obviously it is winter outside. There's about 7 inches of snow on the ground that fell this week in Indianapolis, and one thing that you absolutely can do is get started on some seeds. Now, I wouldn't say get started on all your seeds. When I'm talking about winter sowing, what I'm talking about is making miniature greenhouses. And then you plant the seeds within that. You don't necessarily just toss them at the ground. And then later on in the season, when it's appropriate, you move them from these little greenhouses into your actual garden, whether that's the dirt in the ground, a container, a raised bed, whatever. So this time of year, like I said, it's 27 degrees. There are 7 inches of snow out there. I am not going to be starting on something like a tomato plant. You want to wait to start that till later. Usually with tomatoes, when you're seed starting indoors, you're giving it 6 to 8 weeks. So that means even with winter sowing, you're going to start that at kind of the end of March, beginning of April. So I'm going to be showing a couple of things today. I'm going to show you the seeds I'm going to be working with. I'll show you the supplies that you need, how to prepare one of these containers. And then if you have any questions, feel free to come to me or other librarians at the public library. We love interesting questions, even about something like gardening. So just to show you the seeds to start with, if you did not know, you can check out seeds at the Indianapolis Public Library. Not all of these I got from the library, but some of them that I did. And if I can show you one of the packets, this is a type of broccoli. Broccoli is a cold weather crop, and so it's something that we can get started today. Like I said, you don't want to start your tomatoes today, but a cold weather crop, you can get started right now, February 21st, with 7 inches of snow on the ground. At NDPL, we have labeled everything with when it was packed. This is a brand new packet of seeds, so you know that it's not something that sat around in grandma's garage for 10 years that you need to do a germination test on. You should be good to go if you get it from the library. All you need is a library card. You can get up to 15 packets per year. This is the first year that we will have 13 branches with seed collections, which is super exciting. Please come and get them. I know seeds are a little bit hard to get in some ways right now. Companies are selling out. Everyone's into gardening. Come to the public library. We have seeds for you. So I've got some broccoli. I have some other cold weather crops, and then I have a lot of Indiana native plants. This is a wonderful time of year to do your Indiana natives in this winter sowing technique. A lot of Indiana natives need something called cold stratification. Cold stratification is where you're using the thaw and heat that happens naturally throughout the day during an Indiana winter, as well as just the natural precipitation coming from the sky. You've got your snow, whatever. You're using that to help break down the seed coating and help the seed to germinate. This is a perfect time of year to start Indiana natives in this technique, or you can toss them at the ground, but you won't have as good of germination. So I've showed you the seeds. I'm going to show you some of the supplies that you're going to need. I am a mom. I have a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old. They drink a lot of milk, and we also have an aquarium. So we have a lot of gallon containers. And this is a wonderful way to recycle them. You can actually use these year to year. So I'm going to show you how to prepare one of these, and then a couple of them I'm going to use are left over from last year. So you can get multiple years worth of use out of these recycled plastic containers. The other things that you need, so you need seeds, you need a container, you also need some soil. And do not just take something from your garden. It is best to use like a potting mix, or I love to use seed starting mix. I'm just really familiar with it and I like it. I'm going to cut this open real quick so you can see what it looks like. So the seed starting mix, it's very powdery. It's incredibly dry inside of this. So the first thing you're going to need to do is rehydrate it. Basically, I have taken this entire bag, and I believe that this is 7 quarts of water, 6 to 7 quarts of water, and I've mixed it up in here. So you want it extremely moist. The seeds all need to touch moisture to be able to start that germination process. So I'm going to show you how to prepare the container right now. Like I said, this is just something that I took from my normal recycle bin. I think it's great to reuse. So we'll take this. I use a box cutter. So this is a great activity for kids, but maybe don't give your kids the box cutters. This is something to help with as the parent. I also keep a pair of scissors handy just because I think that's easiest for part, and you'll see how I do it. But what I do, anytime you have a plant in a container, you need to have drainage. You can't have it closed off, or you're going to be encouraging root rot and other problems with fungal infections, basically. So I like to make 8 holes down here at the bottom of the container. I just take my box cutter, and it's like, oh, that went a little too far. That's fine. These are just holes for the excess water to drain out of. All right. There's 4 on the sides. I think the ones at the bottom are probably the most important. Plastic's a little thicker down here. So in addition to these gallon jugs from like milk or distilled water, like I mentioned, my absolute favorite thing to use are the gallon jugs that you get distilled vinegar in. They're a really nice plastic that holds up well to this process. I've seen people use the plastic containers that they get like rotisserie chickens out of. That works as well. Salad mix, 2-liter bottles, you name it. I wouldn't go a lot smaller than a 2-liter bottle though, because it has a risk of tipping over in the wind. Because when we're done with these, we're going to be just putting them outside in the elements. So you want to make sure that they're slightly protected. You don't want it anywhere where they get like 8 hours of blazing sun per day. You also don't want it somewhere where they don't get any moisture, because you want them to get snow on top. Okay, so I've got 4 holes on top. The holes on top are to help with any evaporation so that you can get a little of the excess heat and water out. The holes on the bottom are to help if you get like way too much water in there. It'll help to get it out. So I just sort of start a slit on the side. There's not one way to do this. Like most of gardening, there's not one right answer or one wrong answer. Figure out what works for you. So basically, you cut it almost all the way across, but you leave a little bit attached, so it's like a hinge. And what's at the bottom, underneath the handle, is about 1 hand breadth, okay? So this is the part on the bottom that you're going to be planting in, and this area up here is just acting like a greenhouse. So as far as the cap, we don't need that part. We can just recycle this. So this is what we're starting with for the container, and we are ready to start planting. We already mixed up the soil mix. And like I said, we've left about a hand's breadth at the bottom. That's going to be plenty of space. I've seen a lot of people debate on whether you want to start something like a carrot, which is a root crop with a taproot in this type of thing. Some people have great success. I've never tried it just because I typically do those directly outside. But a lot of people don't have a huge garden space and they're gardening in containers anyhow. Feel free to try and see what happens. So we're just going to fill this with the soil that we mixed with the water. Again, when you open it, it's like a powder, so you do have to put a lot of water inside. So I'm just going to scoop that in. That is probably good. Let's be safe and put that away. All right. We don't want a lot of air in here, so we're just going to tamp it down a little bit, just like you would, you know, if you were planting in a container or a house plant or anything like that. All right. Oh, I didn't choose which one to start with. What do I want to start with? I think I'm going to start with the broccoli that I got at Indianapolis Public Library. So one thing about winter sowing is that you don't have to completely follow the planting instructions. So usually when you're planting this outside, you know, your container like this is going to tell you how deep to plant it. This says 1/2 inch. You don't need to do that though, since we're doing it in the mini greenhouses. There we go. So this is how many seeds were in there. As you can see, it's not as much as you're going to get in a commercial container. At the library, we want everybody to have a chance to grow stuff. So you have less seeds, but you get 15 per year. So I'm just going to kind of sprinkle that on the top throughout the whole container. Got 2 more to go. Here we go. So they are in there. And then instead of that full 1/2 inch, which is what the guidelines typically tell you, I'm going to give just a little scattering of soil on top. So not that full, not a full 1/2 inch. If I were doing something bigger, like a tomato, I would probably only put 4 seeds per container. With this broccoli though, I put a little bit more because often you'll eat that when it's younger and not necessarily as that head of broccoli. So if you can believe it, this is completely done at this point. So the broccoli seeds are in there. As far as completing the mini greenhouse, we're just gonna flip it shut. This is one of those things where you do definitely want to get the more expensive duct tape. You don't want to use cheap tape. It will not stand up in the elements. And we want this to stay shut. You're not going to really open this again until it's time to open it and plant it for real. So I'm just going to come around here. It does not have to be perfect. Like I said, gardening is just kind of one of those learning experiences. Winter sowing has become more popular in the last few years. If you're looking for more information, I heavily recommend that you look for a group on Facebook called Cheryl Mann's Winter Sowing. That's Mann, M-A-N-N, so just search for it. She has great videos, instructions, and it's a whole community of people doing this. So this one is ready. We are completely done. My nose is starting to run. It's 27 degrees out here. I'm just going to show you where I'm going to put this basically for the next couple of months until I move it into a container. So it's kind of heavy with all the water. You might want to carry it on the bottom. There is drainage because we added those holes. We are going to go right out into the snow. But I'm just going to plop this right down here. There's no need to be fussy about it. It's going to get some sun right here. My house at this point, there's a west-facing sun. It has a little bit of shade from a tree. It is not underneath an overhang, so snow that comes down is going to come directly into the open top and help to keep everything in there nice and moist. And because it's an enclosed space, it's going to make a little mini greenhouse. It'll be warmer in there than the air outside. So I know it might be hard to believe, but this plant is going to do great, and in about 6 to 8 weeks it will be ready potentially to go ahead and pot up in the regular garden. One thing I will say with these winter sowing jugs, if you're like me and you end up with like 40 of them, make sure you label it. Trust me. So I just take a Sharpie and I mark it on top. So it's that easy to do winter sowing. Like I said, come get your seeds at Indianapolis Public Library, and if you've got questions, let us know.